Nutcracker.com by David Sedaris. It was my father's dream that one day the people of the world would be connected to one another through a network of blocky, refrigerator-sized computers, much like those he was helping to develop at IBM. He envisioned families of the future gathered around their mammoth terminals, ordering groceries and paying their taxes from the comfort of their own homes. A person could compose music, design a doghouse, and something more, something even better. A person could, he could, when predicting this utopia, he would eventually reach a point where words failed him. His eyes would widen and sparkle at the thought of this indescribable something more. I mean, my God, he'd say, just think about it. My sisters and I preferred not to. I didn't know about them, but I was hoping the people of the world might be united by something more interesting, like drugs or an armed struggle against the undead. Unfortunately, my father's team won, so computers it is. My only regret is that this had to happen during my lifetime. Somewhere in the back of my mind is a dim memory of standing in some line holding a perforated card. I remember the cheap, slightly clinical feeling it gave me, and recall thinking that the computer would never advance much further than this. Call me naive, but I seem to have underestimated the universal desire to sit in a hard plastic chair and stare at a screen until your eyes cross. My father saw it coming, but this was a future that took me completely by surprise. There were no computers in my high school, and the first two times I attempted college, people were still counting on their fingers and removing their shoes when the numbers got above 10. I wasn't really aware of computers until the mid 1980s. For some reason, I seemed to know quite a few graphic designers whose homes and offices pleasantly stank of spray mount. Their floors were always collaged with stray bits of paper, and trapped flies waved for help from the gummy killing fields of their tabletops. I had always counted on these friends to loan me the adhesive of my choice, but then, seemingly overnight, their Scotch tape and rubber cement were gone, replaced with odorless computers and spongy mouse pads. They had nothing left that I wanted to borrow, and so I dropped them and fell in with a group of typesetters, who ultimately betrayed me as well. Thanks to my complete lack of office skills, I found it fairly easy to avoid direct contact with the new technology. The indirect contact was disturbing enough. I was still living in Chicago when I began to receive creepy Christmas newsletters designed to look like tabloids and annual reports. Word processors made writing fun. They did not, however, make reading fun, a point made painfully evident by such publications as the Herald Family Tribune and What's Up with the Wexlers. Friends who had previously expressed no interest in torture began sending letters composed to resemble Chinese takeout menus and the Dead Sea Scrolls. Everybody had a font, and I was told that I should get one too. The authors of these letters shared an enthusiasm with the sort of people who now arrived at dinner parties hoisting expensive new video cameras and suggesting that, after dessert, we all sit down and replay the evening on TV. We, the regular people of the world, now had access to the means of production, but still I failed to see what all the fuss was about. A dopey letter is still a dopey letter, no matter how you dress it up, and there's not a reason regular people don't appear on TV. We're boring. By the early 1990s, I was living in New York and working for a house cleaning company. My job taught me that, regardless of their purported virtues, computers are a pain in the ass to keep clean. The pebbled surface is a magnet for grease and dirt, and you can pretty much forget about reaming out the gaps in the keyboard. More than once I accidentally pushed a button and recoiled in terror as the blank screen came to life, with exotic tropical fish or swarms of flying toasters. Equally distressing was the way people used the slanted roofs of their terminals to display framed photographs and great populations of plush and plastic creatures which would fall behind the desk the moment I began cleaning the screen. There was never any place to plug in the vacuum, as every outlet was occupied by some member of the computer family. Cords ran wild, and everyone seemed to own one of those ominous foot-long power strips with the blinking red light that sends the message, "You must leave us alone." I was more than happy to comply, and the complaints came rolling in. Due to my general aversion to machines and a few pronounced episodes of screaming, I was labeled a technophobe, a term that ranks fairly low on my scale of fightin' words. The word phobic has its place when properly used, but lately it's been declawed by the pompous insistence that most animosity is based upon fear rather than loathing. No credit is given for distinguishing between these two very different emotions. I fear snakes. I hate computers. My hatred is entrenched, and I nourish it daily. I'm comfortable with it, and no community outreach program will change my mind. I hate computers for getting their own section in the New York Times, and for lengthening commercials with the mention of a website address. Who really wants to find out more about Procter and Gamble? Just buy the toothpaste or laundry detergent and get on with it. I hate them for creating the word org, and I hate them for email, which isn't real mail, but a variation of the pointless notes people used to pass in class. I hate computers for replacing the card catalog in the New York Public Library, and I hate the way they've invaded the movies. I'm not talking about their contribution to the world of special effects. I have nothing against a well-defined mutant or full-scale alien invasion that's good technology. I'm talking about their actual presence in any given movie. They become like horses in a western. They may not be the main focus, but everybody seems to have one. Each tiresome new thriller includes a scene in which the hero, trapped by some version of the enemy, runs for his desk in a desperate race against time. Music swells and droplets of sweat rain down onto the keyboard as he sits at his laptop, frantically pawing for answers. It might be different if he were flagging down a passing car or trying to phone for help, but typing in and of itself is not an inherently dramatic activity. I hate computers for any number of reasons, but I despise them most for what they've done to my friend, the typewriter. In a democratic country, you'd think there would be room for both of them, but computers won't rest until I'm making my ribbons from torn shirts and brewing whiteout in my bathtub. Their goal is to place the IBM Selectric II beside the feather quill and chisel in the Museum of Antiquated Writing Implements. They're power hungry, and someone needs to stop them. When I'm told I'm like the guy still pining for his 8-track tapes, I say, "You have 8 tracks? Where?" In reality, I know nothing about them, yet I feel it's important to express some solidarity with others who have had the rug pulled out from beneath them. I don't care if it can count words or rearrange paragraphs at the push of a button. I don't want a computer. Unlike the faint scurry raised by fingers against a plastic computer keyboard, the smack and clatter of a typewriter suggest that you're actually building something. At the end of a miserable day, instead of grieving my virtual nothing, I can always look at my loaded waste paper basket and tell myself that if I failed, at least I took a few trees down with me. When forced to leave my house for an extended period of time, I take my typewriter with me, and together we endure the wretchedness of passing through the X-ray scanner. The laptops roll merrily down the belt, while I'm instructed to stand aside and open my bag. To me, it seems like a normal enough thing to be carrying, but the typewriter's declining popularity arouses suspicion, and I wind up eliciting the sort of reaction one might expect when traveling with a Canon. It's a typewriter, I say. You use it to write angry letters to airport authorities. The keys are then slapped and pounded, and I'm forced to explain that if you want the words to appear, you have to first plug it in and insert a sheet of paper. The goons shake their heads and tell me I really should be using a computer. That's their job, to stand around in ill-fitting uniforms and tell you how you should lead your life. I'm told the exact same thing later in the evening when the bellhop knocks on my hotel door. The people whose televisions I can hear have complained about my typing, and he has come to make me stop. To hear him talk, you'd think I'd been playing the kettle drum. In the great scheme of things, the typewriter is not nearly as loud as he makes it out to be, but there's no use arguing with him. You know, he says, you really should be using a computer. You have to wonder where you've gone wrong when twice a day you're offered writing advice from men in funny hats. The harder I'm pressured to use a computer, the harder I resist. One by one, all of my friends have deserted me and fled to the dark side. How can I write you if you don't have an email address? They ask. They talk of their bee trees and disc doctors and then have the nerve to complain when I discuss bowel obstructions at the dinner table. Who needs them, I think. I figured I'd always have my family and was devastated when my sister Amy brought home a candy-colored laptop. I only use it for email, she said. Coming from her, these words made me physically ill. It's fun, she said. People send you things. Look at this. She pushed a button, and there on the screen was a naked man lying face down on a carpet. His hair was graying, and his hands were cuffed behind his doughy back. A woman entered the room. You couldn't see her face, just her legs and feet, which were big and mean-looking, forced into sharp-toed shoes with high, pencil-thin heels. The man on the carpet shifted position, and when his testicles came into view, the woman reacted as if she had seen an old balding mouse, one that she had been trying to kill for a long time. She stomped on the man's testicles with the toes of her shoes, and then she turned around and stomped on them with the heels. She kicked them mercilessly, and just when I thought she'd finished, she got her second wind and started all over again. I never realized that a computer could act so much like a television set. No one had ever told me that the picture could be so clear, that the cries of pain could be heard so distinctly. This, I thought, was what my father had been envisioning all those years ago, when words had failed him. Not necessarily this scene, but something equally capable of provoking such wonder. Again, Amy pushed a button, and our faces bathed in the glow of the screen, we watched the future a second time. Let's put in a bonus, since no one's looking. You can't kill the rooster. When I was young, my father was transferred and our family moved from western New York State to Raleigh, North Carolina. IBM had relocated a great many Northerners, and together we made relentless fun of our new neighbors and their poky, backward way of life. Rumors circulated that the locals ran stills out of their tool sheds and referred to their house cats as good eatin'. Our parents discouraged us from using the titles ma'am or sir when addressing a teacher or shopkeeper. Tobacco was acceptable in the form of a cigarette, but should any of us experiment with plug or snuff, we would automatically be disinherited. Mountain Dew was forbidden, and our speech was monitored for the slightest hint of a Raleigh accent. Use the word y'all, and before you knew it, you'd find yourself in a haystack French kissing an underage goat. Along with grits and hush puppies, the abbreviated form of you all was a dangerous step on an insidious path leading straight to the doors of the Baptist church. We might not have been the wealthiest people in town, but at least we weren't one of them. Our family remained free from outside influence until 1968, when my mother gave birth to my brother Paul, a North Carolina native who has since grown to become both my father's best ally and worst nightmare. Here was a child who, by the time he had reached the second grade, spoke much like the toothless fishermen casting their nets into Albemarle Sound. This is the grown man who now phones his father to say, "Motherfucker, I ain't seen pussy in so long I'd throw stones at it." My brother's voice, like my own, is high-pitched and girlish. Telephone solicitors frequently ask to speak to our husbands or request that we put our mommies on the line. The Raleigh accent is soft and beautifully cadenced, but my brother's is a more complex hybrid, informed by his professional relationships with marble-mouthed, deep country work crews and his abiding love of hardcore rap music. He talks so fast that even his friends have a hard time understanding him. It's like listening to a foreigner and deciphering only "shit, motherfucker, bitch," and the single phrase, "You can't kill the rooster." The rooster is what Paul calls himself when he's feeling threatened. Asked how he came up with that name, he says only, "Certain motherfuckers think they can fuck with my shit, but you can't kill the rooster. You might can fuck with him up somehow, but, bitch, nobody kills the motherfucking rooster. You know what I'm saying?" It often seems that my brother and I were raised in two completely different households. He's 11 years younger than I am, and by the time he reached high school, the rest of us had all left home. When I was young, we weren't allowed to say "shut up," but once the rooster hit puberty, it had become acceptable to shout, "Shut your motherfucking hole!" The drug laws had changed as well. No smoking pot became no smoking pot in the house before it finally petered out to "please don't smoke any more pot in the living room." My mother was, for the most part, delighted with my brother and regarded him with the bemused curiosity of a brood hen discovering she has hatched a completely different species. "I think it was very nice of Paul to give me this vase," she once said, arranging a bouquet of wild flowers into the skull-shaped bong my brother had left on the dining-room table. "It's non-traditional, but that's the rooster's way. He's a free spirit, and we're lucky to have him." Like most everyone else in our suburban neighborhood, we were raised to meet a certain standard. My father expected me to attend an Ivy League university, where I'd make straight A's, play football, and spend my off hours strumming guitar with the student jazz combo. My inability to throw a football was exceeded only by my inability to master the guitar. My grades were average at best, and eventually I learned to live with my father's disappointment. Fortunately, there were 6 of us children, and it was easy to get lost in the crowd. My sisters and I managed to sneak beneath the wire of his expectations, but we worried about my brother, who was seen as the family's last hope. From the age of 10, Paul was being dressed in Brooks Brothers suits and tiny clip-on rep ties. He endured trumpet lessons, soccer camp, church-sponsored basketball tournaments, and after-school sessions with well-meaning tutors who would politely change the subject when asked about the Roosters' chances of getting into Yale or Princeton. Fast and well coordinated, Paul enjoyed sports, but not enough to take them seriously. School failed to interest him on any level, and the neighbors were greatly relieved when he finally retired his trumpet. His response to our father's impossible and endless demands has, over time, become something of a mantra. Short and sweet, repeated at a fever pitch, it goes simply, "Fuck it!" Or on one of his more articulate days, "Fuck it, motherfucker, that shit don't mean fuck to me." My brother politely ma'ams and sirs all strangers, but refers to friends and family, his father included, as either bitch or motherfucker. Friends are appalled at the way he speaks to his only remaining parent. The two of them once visited my sister Amy and me in New York City, and we celebrated with a dinner party. When my father complained about his aching feet, the rooster set down his 2-liter bottle of Mountain Dew and removed a fistful of prime rib from his mouth, saying, "Bitch, you need to have them ugly ass bunions shaved down is what you need to do, but you can't do shit about it tonight, so lighten up, motherfucker." All eyes went to my father, who chuckled, saying only, "Well, I guess you have a point." A stranger might reasonably interpret my brother's language as a lack of respect, and view my father's response as a form of shameful surrender. This, though, would be missing the subtle beauty of their relationship. My father is the type who once recited a bawdy limerick, saying, "A woman I know who's quite blunt had a bear trap installed in her—" Oh, you know, it's a base vernacular word for the vagina. He can absolutely kill a joke. When pushed to his limit, this is a man who shouts, "Fudge!" A man who curses drivers with a shake of his fist and a hearty "GDU!" I've never known him to swear, yet he and my brother seem to have found a common language that eludes the rest of us. My father likes to talk about money. Spending doesn't interest him in the least, especially as he grows older. He prefers money as a concept, and often uses terms such as annuity and fiduciary, words definitely not listed in the dictionary of mindless entertainment. It puts my ears to sleep, but still, when he talks, I pretend to listen, if only because it seems like the mature thing to do. When my father talks finance to my brother, Paul will cut him off, saying, "Fuck the stock talk, boss. I ain't investing in shit." This rarely ends the economics lecture, but my brother wins bonus points for boldly voicing his uninterest, just as my father would do were someone to corner him and talk about Buddhism or the return of the clog. The two of them are unapologetically blunt. It's a quality my father admires so much he's able to ignore the foul language completely. "That Paul," he says, "now there's a guy who knows how to communicate." When words fail him, the rooster has been known to communicate with his fists, which, though quick and solid, are no larger than a couple of tangerines. At 5'4", he's shorter than I am, stocky but not exactly intimidating. The year he turned 30, we celebrated Christmas at the home of my older sister Lisa. Paul arrived a few hours late, with scraped palms and a black eye. There had been some encounter at a bar, but the details were sketchy. "Some motherfucker told me to get the fuck out of his motherfucking face, so I said, 'Fuck off, fuckface.'" "Well, then what?" "Then he turned away, and I reached up and punched him on the back of his motherfucking neck." "What happened next?" "What the fuck do you think happened next, bitch? I ran like hell, and the motherfucker caught up with me in the fucking parking lot. He was all beefy, all flexed up and shit. This motherfucker had a taste for blood, and he just pummeled my ass." "When did he stop?" My brother tapped his fingertips against the tabletop for a few moments before saying, "I'm guessing he stopped when he was fucking finished." The physical pain had passed, but it bothered Paul that his face was all lopsided and shit for the fucking holidays. That said, he retreated to the bathroom with my sister Amy's makeup kit and returned to the table with two black eyes, the second drawn on with mascara. This seemed to please him, and he wore his matching bruises for the rest of the evening. "Did you get a load of that fake black eye?" my father asked. "That guy ought to do makeup for the movies. I'm telling you, the kid's a real artist." Unlike the rest of us, the rooster has always enjoyed our father's support and encouragement. With the dream of college officially dead and buried, he sent my brother to technical school, hoping that he might develop an interest in computers. 3 weeks into the semester, Paul dropped out, and my father, convinced that his son's lawn mowing skills bordered on genius, set him up in the landscaping business. I've seen him in action, and what he does is establish a pattern and really tackle it. Eventually, my brother fell into the floor sanding business. It's hard work, but he enjoys the satisfaction that comes with a well finished rec room. He thoughtfully called his company Silly P's Hardwood Floors. Silly P being the name he would have chosen were he a rap star. When my father suggested that the word silly might frighten away some of the upper tier customers, Paul considered changing the name to Silly Fucking P's Hardwood Floors. The work puts him in contact with plumbers and carpenters from such towns as Bunn and Clayton, men who offer dating advice such as, "If she's old enough to bleed, she's old enough to breed." Old enough to what? My father asks. Oh, Paul, those aren't the sort of people you need to be associating with. What are you doing with hayseeds like that? The goal is to better yourself, meet some intellectuals, read a book. After all these years, our father has never understood that we, his children, tend to gravitate toward the very people he's spent his life warning us about. Most of us have left town, but my brother remains in Raleigh. He was there when our mother died, and still, years later, continues to help our father grieve. Past is gone, boss. What you need now is some motherfucking pussy. While my sisters and I offer our sympathy long distance, Paul is the one who arrives at our father's house on Thanksgiving Day, offering to prepare traditional Greek dishes to the best of his ability. It is a fact that he once made a tray of spanakopita using Pam rather than melted butter. Still, though, at least he tries. When a hurricane damaged my father's house, my brother rushed over with a gas grill, 3 coolers of beer, and an enormous "fuck it" bucket, a plastic pail filled with jawbreakers and bite-sized candy bars. When shit brings you down, you just say "fuck it" and eat yourself some motherfucking candy. There was no electricity for close to a week. The yard was practically cleared of trees, and rain fell through the dozens of holes punched into the roof. It was a difficult time, but the two of them stuck it out, my brother placing his small, scarred hand on my father's shoulder to say, "Bitch, I'm here to tell you that it's going to be all right. We'll get through all this shit, motherfucker. Just you wait." Thank you, motherfucker, for listening.